everybody, and welcome to the Super Success Show once and again. I am really happy to welcome Gregory Giagnocavo. I don't really know if I pronounced it well. I am so sorry. I'm terrible. Thank you for being here, Gregory. How are you?
Good, thanks. You did fine with the last name. I had trouble with that up until recently. No, until about second grade. So
Thank you. No, and I asked you, I can't even believe it. I had to go with this Spanish accent, would have been much easier. Well, Gregory, he is an amazing business person that I've been following for a long time, and I've learned so much from him that I had to share. Would you like to please let us know what you do?
what I do now is a bit different than what I have done over the last number of 20 plus years, 30 years. Um, I've had experience I started out, I've never had a job. I only had a job.
You've never had
I,
a job,
no, I've
really?
never had a job except for when I worked for my father. So that was built in. Ever since I was 7 years old, I was forced to work in his factory. You
Yeah, well, I worked at my grandma was a fishmonger. I worked with my grandma. I did the same. I think it was a very good way. Don't tell the government, but it was a good way to teach us how to work anyway.
So I did that, and I worked in various things, with always under his thumb until I was about 19 or so. We moved to Canada from the United States. He had an earth moving company then at that time, so I drove earth moving equipment. And one day we were digging a grave at a church, 6 o'clock in the morning, all
Mm-hmm.
foggy, barely light. And the guy looks like something out of a movie with a black hat and a black jacket. He says, "Well, here's where you're supposed to dig." And I'm digging, and this was my last day, because here's what happened. As I was digging and feeling proud of myself, all of a sudden I heard a crunch, and we had hit a grave that had been buried in the wrong spot, a
Oh,
casket. And
uh-huh.
so it ripped it open. You could see the person's legs and stuff start falling out and everything. And I was too freaked out. After that day, I said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I got a job
I'm out.
with a tax company. I went to university in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
but I only had a job, actually job job, when I lost my driver's license. And so I couldn't go anywhere. And so I just took a bus to a plumbing store. And when I was working at this plumbing store, it was on commission. It was kind of fun because I liked to sell stuff. So when a guy would come in for a 45-cent gasket, a little rubber thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'd try to sell him $900 worth of a whole new bathroom. So it became like a game for me. And I started earning so much that the owner said, "I can't afford to pay you. You're earning more than I am. And it's supposed to be on commissions." And so that's when it hit me that what is wrong with this world, that he's paying me commissions of 6%, and he thinks I'm making too much money, and he must be a bad business guy.
Yeah.
Stopped there. I worked for a finance company, which was probably my best 6 weeks of my life, because I learned so much about add-on interest and how these finance companies rip people off and how the interest is calculated. And
Mm-hmm.
my defining moment there that I quit was one day they wanted me to go out with them. I went out with this guy. We drove about 45 minutes to repossess a
Mm-hmm.
washing machine from a little old lady in a farmhouse. And
Uh-huh.
I just said, I would just rather make her payments than take this lady's washing machine. This is ridiculous.
Of course.
But she gave some money, and we drove back, and I thought, I'm out of this. So I had those kind of jobs. I was probably covered a total of 8 or 9 weeks that I worked for someone else. Never worked for anyone else in my life. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not even saying I'm proud of that. I
That's
think I'm
just you.
I think I'm
Is that right?
unemployable, kind of, and I'm
Uh-huh.
always looking for new opportunities.
And which was your first business, actually, or your first deal? I
I'd
don't
say
know
when
what
I,
you
I
did
became
first.
a I became a partner in an accounting firm, and then through that we met some people, and I met some people, and they said, this one guy, particularly a real estate guy, said, "Do you handle money for others?" And I'm like, "Well, I could. I mean, what deal do you have?" Because when I got this deal in Florida, I was in Toronto. And it's cold in Toronto. So when he said Florida, had my attention, and he said it's 4 million something, 4 point something million dollars, and I said, "I think I could buy that. I could raise the money." Well, it turns out I lost the $50,000 I had. I lost it because I
Yeah.
blew the deal. I didn't. It was too big of a deal for me for my first deal, and I was
Mm-hmm.
in another country. I mean, it was just bad. It was just bad. I would advise someone not to do what I did. So what struck me as I'm now in Florida. I bought a new Cadillac down there, and I had a new Mercedes in Toronto, thinking I'm really betwixt and between. How am I going to get out of this? And I thought the best way is to buy another building. If you have no money, the best way to make money is to buy a building. And so I wrangled this deal through this girl I knew, and her mother was a real estate agent. The lawyer wanted to sell it. It's a 48-unit apartment complex. I wanted to turn them into condos. I thought that might be a good business. And so he said, well, I want 1.4 something million for it. So I thought, well, I have $5,000. So I gave a $5,000 deposit under the conditions that we'd work out a deal. So I had the check ready, but then he left and he went to a legal conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was afraid that someone else would get this deal. So I had this check in hand and he wasn't at his office. And so I flew to Atlanta purposely just to meet him at the top of the Peachtree Plaza, one of those restaurants that goes around, caught him at lunchtime. He literally wrote it out on a napkin. And he said, I'll tell you what, if you put up $5,000 and I will lend you the $1 million as a mortgage for 3 years if you come up with $400,000. So I went back to some investors I knew that I'd never done a deal with. And I said, I have the $1 million if you can put up the $400,000. They said, all right, I'll sign for the $1 million. You put up the $400,000. So it sounded like I had, the deal put together. So I told him I had the $400,000. I told the other guys I had the $1 million. And when I closed the deal, I got $50,000 in commission back under the table. And I was restored again. Now I owned a building. Now I had a deal. And we turned it into condominiums, and it became successful enough that we did other deals after that.
Wow. And so I'm guessing this is what you used to do over the years until now that you are actually teaching others how to do their own businesses, right? Yes.
Through my experiences, I believe I've learned a lot of things that would be hard for someone else to learn. All in one, like in one person, one lifetime. So from using that one building, I parlayed that into borrowing $50 million over 2 years or so. And I built 12 real estate projects, $10 million shopping centers, $5 million office buildings. And I built them all over South Florida. And that became, pretty good sized business. When that opportunity seemed to dry up because mortgage rates went up and it's a cyclical business, I then switched to, Internet was just coming out. This was a long time ago. And I wrote one of the first books ever written about the internet. And when that came out, it was a terrible book. It wasn't a good book.
Okay, I was going to ask, which was the book? But it's okay. We won't buy it then.
It wasn't even a good book. And, we made 3,000 copies. We sold them. And oddly, two things happened from that experience. I couldn't find internet connectivity in the middle of the whole state of Pennsylvania. So I was frustrated by that, made a deal with the university that they would give me internet access because I was writing an educational book about how to use internet in education. Met a guy who had bought a book absolutely out of the blue. He bought one of my books and he said, I'd like to talk to you. And then he said, I don't really know what you're talking about, but I think you do. How much money would you need to start this publishing empire? He was in publishing. And that morning I just told my wife, I'm going to go to this meeting and I'm going to tell the guy, if you give me $50,000, we'll start a newsletter. And when I got there, I don't know what came over me. I thought, you know what, I'm going to ask for 100. While he's talking to me, I'm thinking, I'm going to ask for 100,000, thinking I can always settle for half. When he said, how much money do you think you need? I don't know why. I just blurted out $1 million. I don't even know where that came from. And as soon as I said it, I wanted to disappear because I thought he paused for probably 7 seconds. And it felt to me like a half an hour. And I thought, I'm going to just quietly crawl out of the room. And he said, okay, I'll put the $1 million up for you. Just like that. It was like a supernatural thing. I don't even know how to explain it. I don't even know what I said after that, but I probably said, thanks. He said, okay, why don't you come? It's Tuesday. Why don't you come on Monday? I'll set you up in an office. Send me a list of what equipment you need. We'll get you set up. And so I hired a guy over that weekend who had worked on my book and weird thing. And we started on Monday and it was April. I think it was Monday and Tuesday. It was April Fool's Day, April 1st, April Fool's Day in the States, which many times when the company wasn't doing very well for the first year, I thought maybe it's because we shouldn't have started on April 1st.
It's part of the joke. So that book that actually was not that good led to starting a 1 million, a 1 million investment. I don't really know how
Yeah.
big it got to be. Uh,
Got to be
internet
14.
company.
We sold it for 14 times that $1 million investment.
So a 14 million internet company newsletter, right? Also, it was like,
What happened is that we start off with a newsletter, and then I said, I think we should be publishing books, and so we did books and CDs and videos and teaching videos and so on. It just became we had a 16-page catalog within 20 months, and that caught
which
the eye of.
year? Oh, sorry. Which year was that?
Okay, this is 1,000 years ago. So this was 1994 that we
That's why
started in
it's
1994.
important. The
We started in
year.
94, and we sold in 97. So we sold in 30 months and 6 days.
I mean, I didn't even know that internet existed in 1994.
I was one of
That's
the first
why I'm
people.
saying it's important, I think, the year, because you were making 14 million with the internet in the 97. I didn't even know that there was internet.
I wrote my book in 92. I got on the internet in February 92. At that time, this is a history lesson, like a dinosaur lesson, but in that time, there was no web. There wasn't even internet per se. Internet was considered only to be used for education and a story. You don't put advertisements on the internet. You don't sell stuff on the internet. It's only for education. That was a mindset in 92. And the guy who created the web, as we know it, the web software, and the web, I communicated with him online because nobody knew him. We emailed back and forth. And there were only, get this, there were only 50 websites in the world in March of 92. There were only 50, and they weren't graphical. You had to click on the highlighted word to get somewhere. And during that summer of 92, as it started to grow exponentially on fire like crazy, people would trade ideas on where the next website was. They'd say, oh, I found one about zoo animals. Oh, I found one. And then the browser came out. And so the guys at Yahoo, which were still students at the time, I used to communicate to them, their website for Yahoo was stanford.edu/G.Yang, one of the founders of Yahoo, /Yahoo. And after that, you would pull up a page, and it was just a directory, one long page. It started with A and ended with Z, and every time you emailed him a new site, he would put it on the directory. And that's how Yahoo started, and that was the only directory that existed in those days to find things on the internet. So I feel like an explorer that came back to the future.
No, but what I think it's very interesting is like the fact that the vision of, in that time, you already were building an online company. And nowadays, a lot of people is like, oh, it's because it's oversaturated. No, it's just a new market. But back then, it wasn't even considered a market.
No, in fact, it was actively promoted as not a market. I ran one of the first ads for my book on the internet and got so much hate mail saying you can't advertise on the internet. It's only for academic. It's only for, and I like, no. I look at my forewords. I wrote probably 20 some books over the course of those 2 years with other people. And I wrote in the foreword that you don't understand how big the internet's going to be. It's going to take over education. It's going to take over the world. But back in those days, so the second thing that came out of that is that I started an internet provider service because there was no internet where we lived in the center of Pennsylvania. There was no internet. And so while we started the publishing company, I also started with some money from the same guy, an internet access company. But I couldn't give accounts away. I tried to give away accounts, and people said, oh, I'm already on the internet. I'm on AOL. I'm like, no, that's not the internet. And I would hold seminars, and people would come to my seminar, and I would show graphical pages on a big screen about how you could buy your airline tickets and do your banking and all the reserve hotels and all this stuff. And people would say, oh, how do I do that? I'm like, you can't do it yet, but it's coming in a few years. That's why you need to get on the internet. None of this stuff existed, but I said, you're going to be able to buy tickets and reserve hotels and buy cars and all this stuff online. But they were only interested if they could do that now. And so I was trying to give away internet access and couldn't do it because people said, well, who am I going to send an email to? I'm like, just be part of the party and be part of the network effect. So it took a long while. That was a slow that was quite slow actually to get going. That probably took about 16 months until it started to ramp up, because by that time you hit 94, 95, 96, when people started to get an idea what it was going to be.
That's amazing. And how does this, all this knowledge, all this vision actually, all this way that you have to be able to see how things are going to be before they are, how does it help you with your mentees, with the people that comes nowadays to you and they are like, look, I have this vision, but does it help you to see if they are right with their vision, if they are just dreaming? And how does it, your experience with having touched it by yourself, help you now?
Well, I think it's helpful if you've already done something and it worked out. You can tell people, how you did it. I think it's somewhat like describing a new perfume, just using words. Like people try to describe wine, and you can't tell until a girl puts it on. A guy's not going to know how the perfume really smells.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like this visionary thing. People will come and they might have a business. I work with starting entrepreneurs, but let's say you have a business, you want to have a new product. I'm like, you know what? Here, I think that product's not bad, but what you should do is this. And I don't know where it comes from, but I say, you know what? If you made it smaller, bigger, larger, heavier, lowered the price, raised the price, sold it here, went to schools, sold it to churches, sold it on eBay, whatever,
Yeah.
then this is what would happen. And they go, wow, that's a really good idea. And then it jumpstarts their brain in a new direction. I think that's a lot of what I help people do, is jumpstart their brain in thinking what to do. I'll meet with someone, they'll say, well, I do this kind of coaching. I'm like, well, that's not going to scale. There's only so many hours in a day if you work 24 hours in a day. You can't do it that way. What you need to do is, how about this? How about if we give it this name, come up with a new name for it, let's charge this much money, turn it into a course, add a membership site, and start selling seminars. And we start to, and over a period of 2 hours, we'll package that up. The product's not finished, but it jumpstarts their brain and saying, you know what, that's a great idea. And then we run some numbers the next week, and over a period of 7 weeks, they'll come up with a brand new, powerful, profitable company. But at first, they were just wondering how to meet one more person they can sell coaching to.
Yeah.
This works for products too. This is what happened when we were doing our publishing company. It started off with newsletters, and then we added a book. Then we added another book. Then we added videos. Then we added CDs. And then we added a conference company. I said, we really need a conference for this industry. There aren't any. And it became the largest in the United States. We rented all of Disneyland out, all the buildings, all the hotels, all the conference center. And we spent so much money there, they gave me Walt Disney's personal penthouse to stay in, 3,800 feet, butler's quarters. Oh, it was so impressive. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
But that's created out of thin air. And I thought, well, I just need this one woman to help me. She was really ambitious and aggressive. And that was, so I failed there, because you can't build a conference company with one person.
Of course.
Started off with seminars. Inside of 7 months, we had 13 people, and all they were doing was the conference. That's how big it exploded. So if you get on the right idea, the right thing, right trend, you can explode quickly. In fact, you have to, one of the things I'm really pushing people on is you have to move quickly if you're in a trend. Trends are called trends because they don't really last that long. You have to get in on that and make your mark. So right now, if you wanted to start an internet access company, I don't think you'd be very successful, or unlikely. If you wanted to start a streaming company and compete with Netflix, it's unlikely. But if you rolled the clock back 12 years ago, you could put your stake in the ground. You could be as big as Netflix, because Netflix wasn't hardly anything.
Yeah.
So I think striking while the iron's hot, knowing when something's really worth it to put energy in it, money in it, effort in it, surround yourself with people you can sell a vision to, because one of the things you'll find out is, as excited as you are about your vision, not everyone wants to be part of it. Now, they might kick themselves later. I was looking at an interview from Airbnb founders and Amazon founder, Jeff Bezos. He had to talk to 100 people to get 10 people to give him $100,000. Now, I would have given him, if I'd have known that, I'd have given him $100,000, because I was real excited about commerce on the internet. But 90 people turned him down. How do they feel right now? So not everybody's going to love your vision. They just aren't, and you have to just accept that as part of the process.
That actually was going to be my next question. I was going to ask you, how would you recommend me, for example, if I'm honest, any of us, to find the right people? Because I guess just being pumped about your project is not going to be enough. So, how do you find this amazing team that is going to move this project forward with you?
Well, there's probably several components. One is, yes, you do need to be pumped about it because you need extra energy because you're going to be, it's like a mother taking care of children. You need enough energy for yourself and the kids to
Mm-hmm.
keep things going smoothly. And you need enough energy for yourself and the people that you need to keep, motivated. Because
Uh-huh.
not every day is going to be a good day. There's going to be some terrible days where everything crashes. There's going to be months where you don't meet expectations. And I would say, what for me, I've always had big enough plans that I always brought in investors at the beginning. Not everybody likes that idea. It
Mm-hmm.
certainly would have been better if I could have done it without investors, but I might have missed the whole boat. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if you don't pay the price to get in at the beginning, you'll be second or third, fourth, fifth, or nobody in the market. So I like getting investment money and just putting rocket fuel in that thing and pressing go, stepping
Mm-hmm.
on the gas. That's my style. That's not everybody's style. When you have an idea that you want to get people to work with you, there is some talk, if you can find this on the internet, where people say, don't share your idea. Somebody will steal it and they'll do it and
Mm.
you'll be on behind and so on. I don't know. That might happen. I don't know. It never happened to me. Because
It
usually if you,
happened to me, but I am not fussed. Sorry.
but the power of your idea should be big enough that you can share it with people and find people who will latch onto it as well. Like, for example, if I'm going to take a rocket ship to the moon and decide I'm not going to tell anybody, then I'm less likely to get people excited about that. If I put a rocket ship to the moon in my front yard and I tell everybody about it, I'm going to get way more many people than the 3 or 4 people that I have room for. And that's why I think about a company. I tell lots of people about it. I make no bones about it. I try to get press releases. I'll put press releases out myself and get people started. And it's amazing the number of people that will reach out to you. Now, it won't happen every time. Sometimes you have to scramble. I've never had to scramble. And that's not, I don't think, because of me. I think because people that like the kind of ideas that I like will self-identify themselves and they'll come forward. When you run an ad, and it could be on Craigslist, it could be hiring a big recruiting company, it could just be mentioning it to your friends. It's amazing that, maybe it's not even amazing, but if you mention to your friends, I'm going to start this medical supply equipment company, and you keep mentioning it and mentioning it, and you tell them what you're looking for. Like a single girl says, I'm looking for a boyfriend. That's not the right
Mm-hmm.
way to say, I want a boyfriend that's this age range,
Mm-hmm.
doing this, doing this, doing this, and doing this, and that's what I'm interested in. That filters out. So if you're looking for employees, but they have to have certain kind of programming skills, or you're looking for someone that has experience in marketing to the medical profession, if you say what you need and share
Mm-hmm.
this with people, those people will come forward. That's my experience.
Okay, that's actually really good. I like it. So just, yeah, not to keep everything to yourself. When we share, yeah, the opportunities come and the people come. I love that. Has ever, apart from your first deal or your first business, have you ever had a very bad deal, a bad joint venture, a bad investment? Because one thing that we like to talk here on the show is the fact that success is not I wake up one day and I'm freaking awesome and successful. Success is that you mess up and you learn and you grow. So I'd love to know one of yours where something went wrong and what you learned from it.
Well, one of the things you learn is you got to really be careful. You get a little bit sloppy when you have money or things are going well. And in one case, I signed over to protect myself from a lawsuit. I signed over to my partner my 50% of a car dealership that I built.
Mm-hmm.
And I signed over the land lease. And the idea was that I would get it back. Obviously, he has 50%, I have 50%. And when the mud cleared, he would not sign it over and kind of pretended like, oh, well, that wasn't really our deal. And I lost. It was worth $500,000 at the time, but I mean, it was worth millions over the years. So I lost that $500,000 in a couple of weeks. It was stupidness on my part because I didn't follow up with the paperwork because I trusted him so much.
Mm-hmm.
So over trusting in people It's like one of those trust verify things. You don't want to tell your partner, I don't trust you, but then don't do stupid things like
Yeah.
giving them the deed to a property and just expecting to get it back without anything written. I've done that. That happened more than once. And then the one that was my biggest failure was my fault. When you tend to make money, this is what happens. I don't know if it happens as much to women, but it happens to men. And it's called hubris. Let's say you sell something, you have $1 million in cash. That immediately makes you feel smart. It's just the way it is. At least for guys. You feel smart. And you're like, oh, I have this great idea. I'm going to do it myself. So you have this great idea and you think you're going to do it all yourself because you're obviously smart because you made all this money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to another country where I'd moved to Central America. And I thought, this country really needs this idea that's good. It works in the States. It'd be really good. And it was a purchasing system for corporations. I got Microsoft as a partner. I got Price Waterhouse as a partner based on my track record. I got a really rich, like big rich family to be an investor. How could I go wrong? Well, what happened is I was raising money. I went to Michael Dell's office in Austin, Texas. They offered me $5 million. I said, I'm kind of looking for more. And that afternoon, I got a call from my Miami lawyer. He said, we changed our mind. We'll raise $10 million for you. So I thought, okay, 10 is better than 5. And so I flew directly to Miami to help close that deal, sign some paperwork and all that to get it all going. And literally within a week, the dot-com bubble crashed. Now, people hardly remember this, but in a 6-week period in March of 2000, the dot-com bubble, what they call it, crashed. Everything just went to almost no value. And because of that, my lawyers in Miami said, we can't raise even $10, let alone 10 million. So we're not even going to charge you the $50,000 bill that you have with us. We're canceling it. We're closing the file. We're going to send you a copy, but we're out. And within 6 weeks, you couldn't raise money for know-how. And so I couldn't raise that money. But I'm a trooper, so I raised some more private money, put some more of my own money in. And over the next 11 months, I made a deal with Carlos Slim in Aztec TV, and he's the biggest billionaire in the world at the time. And a Mexican telecom guy. Went to his office, bulletproof thing. I mean, it's just a crazy security and everything. Flew there a number of times with my lawyer who knew somebody who knew him. And they agreed to put $3 million up for half the company. So now I'm back on track. But the dot-com bubble crashed their stock as well. And after 10 months of trying really, really hard, I just had to give up. I lost $400 and some thousand in 10 months. So that was the worst experience of my life. I think I might have been almost suicidal. I mean, it wasn't a big blow to me. I mean, it was a blow, but I wasn't going to, I'm still going to eat. It's not going to change my life. But it was really, really, really a crushing blow to the ego. Lots of money lost. Goes to show you a couple things. When you have really rich partners, they don't care as much. For example, if you're a billionaire investor and you lose $600,000, flip, you just keep going on. If I lose $600,000, I'm going to be scratching at the walls and looking for how to make it work. So partners abandon you when things go badly because it means nothing to them. It's like, well, we tried it, didn't work. Okay, next. They just blithely move on. And so that's a danger when you have a really, 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 I mean, everybody, if I said to you, I have a person worth $22 billion willing to invest in you, that's probably not a good deal or not as good as you think it is, because they can just, if you're borrowing $1 billion, it's a good deal, they'll pay attention to you. But if they're going to lend you $200,000, that's nothing. They can easily write that off and keep on moving.
Yes,
and you would think,
dinner, right?
Yeah, you would think, well, they have all this money, I can hit them up for more money later. That's not how it works. So I wiped out, lost my 400,000, lost 10 months to 12 months of my life working really hard on this crazy thing. And the end result was when I found out that the reason the software was not selling, the people weren't interested in it, was that what it did was that it eliminated under the table deals and corruption because everything was online. So if you're my boss and I want to order 1,000 pencils, you have to approve my order. If I want to buy them from here, you go, no, there's only 3 places you can buy pencils. And I'm like, well, I want to buy them from this other guy. No, have to buy them from these 3 approved. So what happened is it cut out corruption. And in Central America, that's how people live. They live on under the table deals, whether it's money back from a tire dealer or pencils or anything. Yeah. And so nobody really wanted to approve this software because it was going to cut out their gravy train. And so I didn't learn that. I didn't even think about it. I didn't pay attention to any signals until it was too late. So that was my biggest flop. Fortunately, not many people know about it, so it's okay. But it was my biggest.
It's
Well,
actually
maybe now they'll know
really,
about it.
really, really interesting though, because I am sure that any time that you have gone to build anything anywhere that was like out of your country, out of your cultural kind of comfort zone, you've investigated after that happened. What's the culture? How do they behave? How do they do things? Right? Or am I wrong?
Oh, that's definitely what you should do. But what I have thought is, well, I'm going to mitigate that by getting local Microsoft office, a local Price Waterhouse, and a local really rich guy.
Well,
But
well,
none of
but
that even helped because the underlying premise, I was incorrect. So when I look back, I'm thinking, what in the world made me invest in a foreign country when if you make a lot of money in, Cincinnati, New York City, why would you then all of a sudden go to some other country and think you can do the same thing? Why wouldn't you replicate it in New York or Cincinnati where you have contacts and where people know you? So it was really just idiotic of me. I was just I thought I had a great idea, and it turned out to be a great. Some people made billions on that idea, but not then. I was like
yeah,
7 years too early because internet wasn't developed here. It was a new concept, and I was just too eager. So that can happen.
maybe that's also why, like here in Spain, I had no idea what was internet in the 90s because, like, year
Yeah,
2000, like, so 98, 97, 98, 99, we started having internet. But before, I don't think
you're
so,
right.
you
No,
know?
you're right. It came late to the masses in other countries.
I wanted to ask you something else because, from my point of view, and from many people's point of view, if I am honest, I hope that's okay. You are a successful person. You've lived a successful life, and well, you now live happy with your wife. You've built something amazing in Guatemala. And I would like to know, what is success for you now in your life? How do you feel success?
I don't think people realize that it's personal,
Hmm.
and so they see on Instagram instead of being something aspiring and inspiring on social media. In fact, it makes them feel badly. Like how many men that are 40 with two children see somebody else who's 40 with two children, and that guy on Instagram has a boat, 6 vacation houses, seems to make 1 million a year, and his kids never do anything wrong. And
Hmm.
then he's like, oh, my life. And I think that what happened is people then start to shift and they go, well, you know what? My happiness would be so much better if I had enough money to buy a yacht. So if I was making as much money, I would be happy. Or if I lived in a certain place, or if I could marry a girl or a guy that looked like that or did this. And social media, I think, has really amplified all that.
Yeah.
People had that 50 years ago, but not to the extent they have now. And I think people really have it twisted.
Mm.
So they should teach us in high school. They should
Yes.
teach us before you graduate. They should go through an exercise. It would only take an hour. 1 hour out of 12 years of school would help people get oriented. And that is, what is success? What does it mean? And what do you really want out of life?
Yeah.
We know that from studying lottery winners. If most people get $1 million or $100 million, it doesn't really bring happiness. It brings fighting in the family. They lose a lot of the money. Some of them become broke again. So it's
Hmm.
not just the money. However, I would also say it's not the money. So in other
Hmm.
words, having a garden where you plant tomatoes all year long, to some people, to my Italian grandparents, that was their definition of success. Have your own
Uh-huh.
garden, pick fresh vegetables, have some grapes, a couple goats, and they were just that was success. That was success to them. I really do care about the money a lot. I care about the money a lot. I'm looking to invest. I look for opportunities. I try to help people make money. I actually love helping other people make money, and that's almost as good as me making money because I like
Hmm.
to see the creativity and I like to see something getting built.
Yeah.
So it's not just the money, but it's not the money either. And that is to have control of your life. You can decide what to do next week or next month, where you're going to go, what you're going to create, who you want to invest in, who you want as your friend, where you're not beholden to things or anything. To not have a mortgage that you worry about.
Hmm.
That's a For some people that's a really big deal. For others it's not a big deal. But to not owe anything is a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
to not feel beholden by somebody else, to not have a job where you're told what to do. To me, that sounds very attractive to me. And I think if you say, I'm not going to be held back by debt that I owe, obligations to other people, to a job, promises I made because I'm in a small business that I can't keep up fast enough. You can have your own business and making decent money and still feel frustrated and not happy because it's just too much servicing your customers. So to me, it means freedom to make your own decisions and not have to go by what other people tell you. To me, that anyway. Now you're talking to a guy who never had a job, so this might not be what everybody else wants. But
No,
I just like the freedom to do what I want to and do what I want to. You know? And that doesn't necessarily take a lot of money. You know, I know you
no.
see these nomad travelers that are traveling around the world, nomads, they don't make $1 million a year. But if they make $3,000 or $4,000 a month, that's all you need to live carefully, travel around all the time. That's a wonderful lifestyle. I don't know if they want to do that when they're 75, but it's a wonderful lifestyle in the meantime.
Definitely. And yeah, I completely agree. Like, first of all, the fact that successful is personal. And exactly, we all have the definition. Your definition is fabulous. I love it. And that's why we want to see, different definitions of what our guests feel. I was going to say think is success, but it's actually how you are living success. That's why the question comes, because what I wanted to share with the audience is how you live success. Sorry, someone knocked at the door during the interview. I'm going to kill my family. Sorry. So what success is for you? um so
There's some people, Grant Cardone says, a lot of people say, it's Gary, a lot of people, famous people say this, and that is, when you own something, that something owns you. Like, I've had a nice boat. What a pain in the neck. Every time
absolutely
you
agreed.
come to visit me and I say, let's go out on the boat, and a hose is broken or it needs to be brought down or something from the storage. I've had a limo with a bodyguard driver. That was wonderful, but it's also something you got to take care of all the time, and you have to be wary of it. So those kind of things that most people want, and I loved it. I understand why somebody would want that. But there comes a time when if you have a limo for a couple of years, if you have a bodyguard driver for a couple of years, you have a big fancy house with servants or people that come and work with your family, work on things. I think we had more people working for our house than we had in our family. Somebody does this to the roof, they do that to the pool, they do this to the yard, they do that with the trees, and they do that with it. It was like,
And this break and yeah, and the cleaner and the laundry and
yeah. And so after a while, it's like, that's not really bringing you true happiness. And you have to really sit. I think people should almost it should be like a government requirement that everybody sits alone for 2 hours a year and
analyze, right?
because if you don't, people don't, I don't do meditation, but people don't even they don't even take the time. They have the time, but they don't take the time and say, for this next year, and I don't mean New Year's resolutions, but what I would like to be doing, not in 5 years, who knows what's going to happen in 5 years, look at 2020, but what I'd like to be doing in 4 months, how much would I like to be earning, what would I like to be doing with my family, when's the next time I'm going to go away, do I really want to get married to this guy or girl, do I want to, and really ask yourself hard questions so that you get easy answers. And unless you ask the hard questions, your life is going to be very hard.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think most people live not so happy or harder lives just because of that, because we prefer to go, like the horses, anytime something is tricky or brings really negative emotions on us, we put this on, we keep going, we don't want to look at it, and it's not there. We'll see when it comes back. So yeah, I love that.
And I would also mention that although people are like, oh, look at all the things you did, I really didn't do that much. I had great people that were working with me. My son, who was a programmer, to people that I hired, that became part of the team, to people I brought in early on, people that, after you get 20 employees, you still keep hiring people. Those are the real heroes. I was sort of like guiding the ship. It's like if I was guiding a cruise, if I was a pilot or captain of a cruise ship, and it was 1,000 people had a wonderful time. And so they said, oh, we had a wonderful time on that cruise. It was the most amazing 6 days and so on and so on. I'm the captain of the ship. I don't really get full credit for that. I shouldn't,
Yeah.
they say, oh, you're the captain. We had a wonderful time on your ship. Well, I didn't do any of that back there, but I might get credit for owning the company or being the captain. And I always mention that to people because I want to make people aware too that there is no such thing as a self-made man, so to speak.
No.
You become
No.
successful. It's pretty well impossible to have this big successful company just by you working by yourself. You're always going to need services or help, money or whatever from other people. And so I always throw that in there to recognize that.
Awesome. So, well, we are going to leave it with that because I'm loving this. Synergies and finding awesome people is what matters the most. And that's what this group is all about. So, get networking amongst each other right now. After this, just before doing anything else, I want you to go and say hi to somebody in this group, send them a message, and book a 20 chat and get synergizing. Thank you, Gregory, for your time and for being in the show. I have enjoyed this so much. I really hope we can have you again in the future when this is a hit and we are all super famous. Thanks.
All right. Take care.